What day?
Hi, everybody. Nice to see you all. Thank you for coming. It's wonderful. Could we please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? Mr. Supervisor, are you capable of getting up?
I am capable of getting up. Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, and if we could just have a moment of silence, a thank you to our Yorktown veterans, our first responders, and this is Police Week in Yorktown?
National Police Week, and then we have EMS Week next week, I believe.
Good, okay,
And of course, we just came out of Nurses Week, since we're
good.
sponsored by the
Covered
hospital.
everybody, all right. Amen. Very fortunate that we have so many dedicated people, volunteers and dedicated people who help run the town. Okay, first we're going to have Mr. Slater, who's not here yet.
You want Ed to go, and then or you want me to talk about things from some things from?
No, we'll let Ed go. You want to go now?
Sure. Let me go up to the podium.
Supervisor Ed Lachterman. We can call you that now.
Yes, I left before lunch, but there was a beautiful event over at Copper Beach Middle School today where our seniors from the senior center went over and did some crafts with the kids that are in the middle school. Then they put on, they had some of the choral singers singing. They had their band and I believe orchestra come in too, correct? Yeah, so just really, really beautiful.
Nice.
And I don't know, one of the, actually two of the girls together there that I guess have been singing together for a while, they sang Castle in the Clouds out of Les Mis. And like, I felt I was down on Broadway. They were absolutely amazing. So it was just really, really nice time. So those of you that don't go to the senior center, you may want to check it out. It's not just about lunch. It's a lot about camaraderie. It's a lot about the events that they do. And they really, really, they do some great, great things. Matter of fact, on Wednesday, was it? Diana, you were there. Was it Wednesday? Yep. We had a nice party there. Paulie comes in, the DJ Paulie with his wife Donna, and they were celebrating two of the seniors who were turning 99 years old. So just amazing, amazing time, and I highly recommend looking into it. Now, there have been a lot of questions about the elevator in the Albert A. Cappellini Community and Cultural Center. It's been on and off with service. I just wanted to give an update. A couple weeks ago, we put out a bid for the parts that are needed. We basically need to replace the entire mechanical. The problem is the elevator is so old that you can't find the parts for it. So I told them, look, if we can't get the parts and get it done right, just replace all the parts. They were having a problem because the internal box, as I call it, the elevator cart, is much smaller than what they make nowadays. So that means that the chute that it's in is small as well because they're not made with any extra room. So it's been, they were trying to find someone who could redo the box. And finally in a meeting, we decided, let's forget about the box. Let's keep that in place. Let's get the whole new mechanical workings. It is out for bid, and we're hoping to move that as quick as possible. So that's moving there. I was going to talk a little bit about some of the housing projects, but you have a much, much better person who's going to be able to answer those questions, and our former town supervisor and now member of our planning board, Aaron Bach. So he'll be able to update everyone on that. So I'm pretty much done unless anyone had any questions. The way I
Oh,
like
that's
it.
good.
The way I like it. All right. So thank you all for your time. I have. I have a few appointments and need to rest my back a little bit, and I will leave and thank you.
Thank you.
And the
Thank
entire
you for
board
coming.
for
Yeah.
the time, and everyone have a wonderful weekend.
Thank
Be
you.
well, be well.
Thank you. If anyone is interested, you got a couple things going on this weekend. They're going to be renaming a part of 202 for Kenny Scroy, who passed away, our police captain, posthumously promoted to captain. That is Saturday morning at 9:30 a.m. at the police department. And since he walked in the room, we'll thank Assemblyman Slater for making sure that this got through and that we could rename the road. Although, did the signs get put up yet, man? Oh, good. Nothing like waiting to the 11th hour. I know, not you, DOT. Then, if you like animals, the SPCA has their walkathon over at FDR Park starting at 10 a.m. And they usually have a really nice pavilion area set up where you could walk around. They'll have dogs up for adoption. They usually don't bring cats because they try to get away in the woods. But it's always a great time. My wife and I have done that walkathon quite a few times. And then for those who are into history, the Rochambeau encampments will be opening. They'll have the Grange Fair. They'll be open for 2 days, Saturday and Sunday, where they have recreations of different things from colonial times. They'll have people in period costumes. They'll be doing different things. There'll be George Washington and Rochambeau there both times, as you know, not the real ones. Yeah, and I miss George. He and I went to school together, so.
Yeah.
But, no, it should be a really good time. That's all day Saturday, all day Sunday. I know they have their kickoff ceremony starting at 12 o'clock on Saturday, but I believe you could be there earlier. And that's $10 per carload for parking. And that money goes towards the Grange and furthering living history events. So really nice time, and it should be a great opportunity. I think they'll have some vendors there as well, selling some period-type stuff. So it should be a really nice time, and that's about it for my calendar.
Thank you. Thank you,
you.
Mr. Supervisor. Thank you. I'd like to mention our members. Would you want to tell everybody your names?
Francis McBetty.
Daryl Lindholm.
Jenny Menton.
Rosemary Panio.
Winston Ralph.
Deborah Marks, liaison to Matt Slater's office.
Bill Falcone, Recreation Commission.
Diana Kloss, Town Clerk. Serafina Mastel, The Outsider.
Okay, what do we have next?
Matt.
Matt, where is Matt? Did he come? Okay. Our former supervisor,
Oh, we're going out.
Yay.
our current assemblyman, Matt Slater.
Saw me this morning? Oh, we did see each other this morning.
Yeah,
You get me twice today. What do you know?
later on, too, probably.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Great to be here. Great to be with our wonderful seniors of Yorktown. Always good to be home. Hey, Mrs. Jackmer. Good to see you. I want to thank Supervisor Lachterman for doing a great job for the town. I want to thank our Parks and Rec Superintendent, Jim Moderano. One of the best you can find in the region. Does a great job. And to our Senior Advisory Committee, as always, thank you so much for all you do.
Thank you.
Being a great voice, great advocates for our seniors. As always, I want to point out Deb Marks from my office. Deb is our senior advocate, so we are very focused on constituent services in our office. And Deb handles specifically all issues related to our seniors. And so, Deb, thanks for all the work that you do. Really, really appreciate it. So I just, let's give her a big round of applause. So I just wanted to just stop by real quick and just give a quick update from Albany. We wrapped up the state budget a couple weeks ago. Once again, it was a late budget. Not that it really had that much of an impact because we were passing contingencies that allowed government to continue to operate, which I think is a responsible thing for us to do. The final budget, $237 billion. That's billion with a B. And it covers a whole host of things. And I think I've said it before here, but just to remind folks, it's not like town government. And we have Aaron Bach, one of our former supervisors, and we know and Ed knows Supervisor Lackman knows that town government deals with the nuts and bolts, right? How much does it cost to run the building department? How much does it cost to run Parks and Rec, et cetera, et cetera? The state budget does that, and then it does a whole lot more. We spend the most on two areas of public education and Medicaid first, then public education. And this past budget cycle, Governor Hochul actually tried to cut funding for about 50% of New York's public schools. We were able to avoid those cuts, which was great. And we were able to protect Yorktown and Lakeland and Ossining and Croton, the 4 school districts that touch the town of Yorktown. And we were able to do that by maintaining the hold harmless clause. The hold harmless clause says that you get at least, minimally, the same amount of foundation aid that you got the year before. And that's one of the things that the governor tried to eliminate, which would have, like I said, none specifically in Yorktown, but would have really hurt public schools across New York State. Again, more than 50% seeing a significant reduction. So we were able to avoid that, which I think is really important. Again, growing up here in Yorktown, product of the Yorktown Central School District, understanding the importance of public schools here in Westchester County. And so we were working in a very, I think, bipartisan manner to make sure that we were able to stop that from happening. The bigger issues that I was focused on, in addition to public education, is our infrastructure. I think we all know that the state roads here in Westchester are subpar. That's just not my opinion. That's actually the facts from the DOT's latest conditions report. It actually says that our region, Region 8, the Hudson Valley, has the worst rated roads and the worst rated bridges in the state of New York. And so that was something that we've been very, very focused on. We were able to get significant dollars to do 202 from the Taconic Parkway down 202 past the Yorktown Police Department, ending right here at the Four Corners. But there's a lot more that we need to focus on. And I think it's important that Yorktown residents understand that my focus has been increasing the state's investments in our infrastructure. We are seeing a culvert repair on 35, which is good, but there's more that needs to be done. Obviously, Route 6 is always problematic, especially in the Jefferson Valley area. I drive on that road all the time. I know. My teeth chatter as well, trust me. But, the sad reality is, even though we have the worst rated roads and the worst rated bridges, we're not getting, I think, the right investment by the state. And one of the things that we tried to do this year was increase the state's investment in the DOT core capital plan by $400 million. Something, again, that was a bipartisan effort with myself and the Westchester delegation, rest of the Putnam delegation. Unfortunately, and I asked about this specifically on the floor of the Assembly when we were debating the budget. It was in the Senate's proposal. It was in the Assembly's proposal. But the governor is the one who rejected that additional investment. And that's significant because we have, again, if you look at across my district, all of our main arteries are state roads. And that means that our highway departments cannot pave them. They cannot fix them. It falls to the state. And when you talk to Department of Transportation, they have a 5-year cycle that they look at when it comes to planning these projects. And without the increase in the funding that the state's allocating, they cannot increase the number of projects that they're working on. And so it's a very frustrating cycle. Again, we pay amongst the highest property taxes in the nation, and I don't think it's too much to ask for to make sure that we have safe and smooth roads for us to enjoy. So we're going to continue to work on that. That's an important aspect that we've continued to see. I am happy to say, though, that the governor proposed cutting the CHIPS funding, which, again, our former supervisor can tell you, and our current supervisor can tell you. CHIPS is what our local highway departments utilize to pave local roads. And so the governor originally proposed cutting that by $60 million. And we were able to stop that cut as well and made sure that our highway departments got the same amount in highway CHIPS funding that they did the year before, which is great. However, I think it's important to note, and our highway superintendent can tell you himself, that the cost per paving has continued to go up.
Of course.
If you go back a number of years ago, I think at this point, probably 4 years ago, it was about he said it was like $70 a ton, and now it's up to about $120 a ton. And so even though we stopped the cuts that were proposed by the governor, we're still asking our highway departments to do more with less because of the cost of construction and obviously the impact of inflation. Those are all quality of life issues that I think are really important for us to stay focused on. We were trying to lead an effort to increase investments in local roads by $250 million across the board. But at the end of the day, it's better than seeing those dollars get cut. And so I think the highway departments are thankful for that. We worked directly with Highway Superintendent Paganelli, as well as the highway superintendents from across our region, to make sure that we were advocating properly for local roads. In addition to that, we also, I just want to cut through my notes real quick here, but we also saw other, I think, important items that I think are quality of life issues, one of which is cannabis enforcement specifically. As I think we all know, cannabis was legalized by the state a couple of years back. The town of Yorktown opted, I was on the town board then, in a bipartisan fashion. The town board opted not to opt into the cannabis program, so we weren't, and we do not allow currently here in the town any of the cannabis lounges or dispensaries to exist. However, there are 36,000 illegal cannabis shops across the state of New York, and it's a real issue, especially downstate. But we're also seeing it impact us here in Yorktown because I've spoken with Chief Noble about some of the vape shops that we've had to crack down on as well. The problem is that when the state rolled out the cannabis laws, they only hired 14 investigators for the entire state of New York. Think about that for a second. 14 investigators for the entire state of New York. I think that's almost the size of our Parks and Rec department at this point. And so it really was completely undermanned, poorly mismanaged. And so one of the things that I was advocating for this year, working actually with our police department and some of our partners in Albany, was to allow local law enforcement to do something, I know crazy, but actually enforce the laws, and something that was not being allowed under the way that the statute was written. Previously, what would happen is you have to call the Office of Cannabis Management, and you would be lucky if you hear back from them in 8 to 12 months if someone was selling marijuana, cannabis illegally out of one of the shops. 8 to 12 months to get a call back because, again, 14 investigators for the entire state of New York. So now what we're allowing local law enforcement to do, which we were able to get done in the budget, is to let local law enforcement actually engage with the building department to shut these shops down across New York State. So that's a huge win from a law enforcement standpoint, and something that we were very heavily involved in. There was 2 bills that we supported, one by Jen Rajkumar, Assemblywoman Rajkumar out of Queens, and Johnny Zaccaro, good friend of mine, great colleague from the Bronx. And so in addition to not only shutting them down, but we are also going after their licenses. What does that mean? You have to have a license to sell alcohol, a license for lotto, a license to sell tobacco. And so now if we're catching you illegally selling cannabis in your shops, in your delis, in your gas stations, well, not only are we shutting you down, but we're also taking away your license to sell beer, to sell cigarettes, to sell lotto. And so we're finally putting teeth behind the law, and we're finally letting our law enforcement do their job, which I think is critically important. And so that was another significant victory that we were a part of in this year's budget process. We also expanded hate crimes. I think we've all seen the rise of anti-Semitism across the country and here in the state. And so that's something that we're very focused on as well. And so that was another victory. And the other item that I wanted to point out that I think is really great is we also were able to get done the first in the nation prenatal program that actually allows expecting mothers to get time off to go to their doctor's appointments, which I think is really fantastic when we talk about increasing health care here in New York State. And so those are some of the high-end items that I think were really good. Unfortunately, there were some not so good things in my opinion as well. Again, $237 billion is a lot of money. There's absolutely nothing when it comes to property tax relief in the budget. Again, we're increasing, overall the budget was increasing its spending by nearly $2 billion. And, while I hate to, disparage the issue, fact of the matter is there was another significant increase in spending for migrants, something that I've questioned significantly every year that I've been there. Just Wednesday, I held a press conference in Albany because we think it's time for the Oversight Committee, who hasn't met in almost 5 years, to actually hold a hearing to make sure that we understand how the dollars are being spent. There is some significant news articles that came out at the end of last week and early this week about DocGo, who is the contractor, no-bid contractor that's supposed to be managing the migrant issue in New York City. Turns out, apparently, allegedly, that the hotels that they were using to move migrants out of the city here into the Hudson Valley, specifically in Rockland and in Orange County, were owned by their own family members. So there's some self-dealing going on here that is coming at the cost of taxpayers. And so there's a lot of serious questions that we need answers to. I don't think it's unfair to ask how many people are we helping with the $2.4 billion that's allocated in the budget. No one seems to know. When you go online and look at the state comptroller's reports, there's the expenditures, month-to-month expenditures between Q3 and Q4 of last year and in the first part of this year doubled. Why? It's a very simple question. No one can seem to tell me. No one seems to know. And so there's a lot of ambiguity, and I think there's a lot of lax oversight over taxpayer dollars. People are working 2 to 3 jobs just to survive here. And I think every dollar counts. And I don't think it's unfair to ask for proper oversight, accountability, and transparency when it comes to how these dollars are being spent. And so I think that, unfortunately, really puts the budget, in my opinion, I think we could have done better, put it that way, to say the least. So, but with that, I don't want to take up too much of your time, and I'm happy to answer questions.
Hey, Matt, just one question.
Yes, sir.
By the way, excellent update. The one question I asked is that you made a remark in regards to the roads. In the event that anyone is driving and they get into a pothole, they should call
Yeah, so
the
there's...
governor of New York.
Yeah, well, that's the first thing I said.
Consider
Is,
that both humorous and ironical, you know?
well, it's the truth. I mean...
Could you give us her number?
Yeah, we can get you her number, but if you... let me say this. If you are going to... If you're on a state road, Route 6, 202... if you're going over onto 35, 118, et cetera, and you're hitting a pothole, you actually can just call 1-800-POTHOLES, and that's going to get you right to the Department of Transportation, 1-800-POTHOLE, and you can tell them that, hey, I just hit a pothole, and they'll actually disperse their crews to fill that pothole. There are questions about whether or not you can get reimbursed if you damage your car. It depends on the situation, but there is a process to report that damage and see if the state can cover the costs for that damage. I can tell you people have not been very successful in that process.
I know.
Some more so than others, but that is something else to keep in mind, though.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, the state road issue is a significant one. We're working very, very diligently to try to bring more investment into Yorktown and into the surrounding area. But when the governor is stopping and preventing a $400 million expenditure, it really does hurt the operation from DOT core capital standpoint. And I just hate to keep bringing it up, but you're spending $2.4 billion on migrants with no oversight. Meanwhile, our roads are falling apart. And let me just say, if you tally it up, we're spending more on migrants than we are on seniors, than we are on veterans, then, the list goes on and on. So I think it's a real reality check, but priorities have to be priorities. And I think the priority needs to be taking care of New York taxpayers first and foremost.
As a follow-up to that, I want to applaud you for introducing legislation requiring voter ID. I think right now is a very important time that we have that. Thank you, Matt.
Yeah, no problem. Not only did we do that, but we also introduced legislation that would make New York the 5th state to participate in the SAVE program. It's I'm going to get the acronym probably wrong, but it's this systematic verification of alien entitlements. 4 other states are currently part of that. This is a federal program, and it makes sure that those who are either receiving benefits or actually even registering to vote are in fact eligible for those benefits or to vote. I think that's an important step for us to take. But also from the voter ID standpoint, I mean, that's just common sense at this point. I think we all know that, you need an ID to get into anything.
That's right.
I'm surprised, the list goes on and on of where you need an ID, whether it's a hospital, doctor's appointment, et cetera, wherever, but you don't need one to vote. And I think that's just a common sense solution that ensures our elections are in fact, being taken seriously and we keep their integrity at the highest point.
We have a question over there.
We have 2 questions, but let's, Mrs. Jackimer, go ahead.
How is that going, and will we see any
So how's it going? It would be going great if the governor would listen to me. I think that it's an uphill battle, to be frank. I don't think that that's a focus as we close out this year's legislative session from the majority standpoint. I think there's some good things that they're focused on, things like tackling social media and the addictive algorithms for children. I think that's a good thing that we need to be focused on. That's one of their priorities as we close out. But I don't think the voter identification law, I don't think I can go down the whole list of things that would significantly improve the quality of life in New York State. I don't think that most of them are high on the priority list, unfortunately. And so, that's where I think we could be doing better as a state, and that's why I keep fighting every day to try to instill some common sense into these conversations that I'm having.
Does she ever give a reason why she's not for that particular law,
Which one?
for the voter ID?
I have not heard from the governor what her stance is on voter ID.
Well, but when you register to vote, they know whether you're a citizen or not.
It's actually not accurate.
Really? They don't ask? You don't have to provide? No.
It's not a question.
You just check it off.
You just check it off, you sign it, and that's it.
No proof. It wouldn't help for us to send letters and so forth.
Well, it's always helpful to send letters and be active in the process
Yep.
to advocate for policies. I'd ask for a different policy for you to add. Well, that's an important one. Don't get me wrong. That's a very important one. But I think there's a more timely issue that we're dealing with that directly impacts Yorktown, and that's Jake's Law. Jake Cara, for those who may or may not remember, was the highway worker who was killed right on London Road.
Right.
And just a complete tragedy. I remember that day vividly. And we announced with his mom, Kelly, just this past weekend, right before Mother's Day, the introduction of Jake's Law. And it would make Yorktown the first municipality to expand the state's camera laws to allow the town to put up cameras in work zones to increase work zone safety.
Wonderful.
And it's, I think, a very common sense measure
Yep.
that we know for a fact, statistics show that will improve the safety of drivers, but also the safety of our workers. And so that, I think, is actually something that we can get done, and that's something that would be great to have your advocacy on. Because, unfortunately, the statistics showed last year alone across New York State there were over 400 infringements of work zones, 3 workers, state workers, killed. I think it was over 120 injured. There was a state worker in Syracuse just last Friday who was killed setting up a work zone. And so this is a real safety issue.
Wow.
And something that we could definitely use some help with your voice on. So that'd be great.
Wonderful.
Another question. You had a question for me, Kathleen? All taken care of. Okay. Other questions? Yes, ma'am.
I had lived in Yorktown a long time, but moved to the other side of Yorktown 4 years ago. When I go to vote, and they have you sign your name in the book, my kids is in that book. My kids are in the book where I moved to, so they can technically vote in 2 places.
No,
There's
it'll
no
come up on the
difference.
computer.
It-
The computer will show that you already voted.
If they already voted, but I think what she's saying, they're listed in 2 election districts, which is, I think, one of the issues with the voter rolls. And I've sponsored legislation that would mandate the Board of Elections update their voter rolls on I
Yes.
think it's on a biannually basis.
Yeah.
Good, absolutely.
Because that's something that I think we're slow on as a state, and it's not the fault, I think, of any specific individual, but I think it's a policy that needs to be implemented so that we're making sure that people are actually in the districts that they're supposed to be in, and it also stops that voter confusion from happening and takes away, any potential for malfeasance. Yeah, Mrs. J.
How are we preventing illegal votes from coming into 2024?
Well, I mean, I don't think, listen, I can tell you I've never seen myself, I've never seen any type of effort to have illegal votes come in.
Right.
I think that it could be for, a number of reasons, but I've never witnessed it myself, and I think I've been around this for a while now. So I think that the Board of Elections and our election workers do a good job. I think that people respect the process.
Yes.
But I don't think it hurts to have additional safeguards in place. But I've never seen any evidence of any type of ballot box stuffing or any of the things that people have asked about in the past.
How is the census affecting everything?
Well, I mean, the census, from that standpoint, I mean, it's no secret that New York leads the nation in out-migration. We lose more people. We've lost more people again than any other state in the country. And so how does that impact us? It takes away our federal delegation in Congress. I mean, that's really how that impacts us the most. And if we lose more seats in Congress and the House of Representatives, we lose the ability to advocate properly for the needs of New Yorkers and bring back more dollars.
Then the people coming in, are they going to be counted? They're going to be counted for the census, so it's going to look like.
At the end of the day, we still lose the most people of any other state, and that's one of the things that we have to really focus on. And I think there's some common sense measures that we can take to make it a more affordable state, to help with job creation and help people survive here. But I think that's something that we need bipartisan support on. The answers are there, the solutions are there. We just need to get it across the finish line, and we'll see. Hopefully, we get something done by the end of session. Session ends this year, June 8th. I'm counting the days, but we'll see. We'll see what comes down the next 10 days. Any other questions?
I just wanted to make one comment about the voting situation. Everyone receives a card in the mail where they're to vote. There's a code on that. If you would only bring that in when you come to vote, that's a perfect ID. Perfect, because we can scan it. We can't ask you for any ID.
Right.
Usually the person hands it to us, and that's great because we scanned it right in and it's right there. And if your children have already voted and they go someplace else, the machine will tell us they've already voted.
But they don't.
Okay.
Well, okay.
It'll come up as they voted.
York, yes, but they don't live in New York anymore.
They live in a
But
They moved.
vote maybe in a
Right.
presidential election in Connecticut and then here.
right.
Well, I mean, if that happens, and
Yeah.
we've seen that happen, but they've also been caught. People have been caught doing that. So that's the good news. So, like I said, I do think there are good measures in place, but I
Yeah.
think there can be better measures in
You
place.
bring that card in, it's a big, big help to the person sitting at that table.
Yeah.
Okay, and we always just ask you your name, and I always ask your address. I don't show you the page. You tell me your address. If you don't give me the right address, then I know something is wrong.
I just want to.
There are ways of us doing it that we know who you are and we're not asking you. Even your driver's license, if you give us your driver's license, we could scan that right in also. There's a code in the back that we can scan in now. So it really helps identifying people. Because forget the signature, that doesn't work anymore.
I just want to point out that I believe June 21st is our veterans. I'm sorry.
June 20th.
20th. Thank you. I was off by a day. June 20th is our annual veterans picnic. So any veterans here in Yorktown, more than welcome to join us. We're going to be at the Putnam County Veterans Park in the town of Kent. It's always a fun time. We get to celebrate the freedoms and the people who protected those freedoms on our behalf. We also, I know, are working on our annual health fairs that are going to be coming up in the fall. We always host one here in the town of Yorktown. And so we'll be providing more of that information once it becomes available. But I just want to, just say one more time that we are constituent focused. And so if you have any issues with the state, even any issues on the local level, we're happy to be a conduit with your local government, with your county government, federal government. We have a great team representing Yorktown from the top down, from our federal delegation down here into town hall. We all work very, very cohesively together. And so if we can be of any assistance to you, we're always here to help.
I want to show you these pamphlets that are here, Safety Tips for Seniors. If you'd like to come by, I found this very, very worthwhile. If you'd like to come by to pick one up on your way out.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay, now we have our other guest speaker, Christina Shen, cardiovascular liaison from New York Presbyterian Hudson Valley Hospital, talking about Women's Heart Health Month. Wendy.
Hi.
Hey, Wendy.
Hi, everybody. Great
Wendy
to see you.
McNamara.
I'm Wendy McNamara, Community Affairs Coordinator, New York Presbyterian Hudson Valley Hospital. Lovely to see everyone on this beautiful day. I want to thank Rosemary and the board for inviting us to speak this month, which is Women's Health Month, on the important topic of women and heart health. New York Presbyterian Hudson Valley Hospital is your neighborhood hospital serving the Hardell-Hudson Valley community with specialties in cardiology, cancer care, digestive health, orthopedics, obstetrics, gynecology, and gastroenterology. It is my distinct pleasure to introduce my colleague, Christina Shen. Christina is the cardiovascular service line liaison for New York Presbyterian. She graduated from Case Western University with dual degrees in nursing and political science. She has also earned a Master's of Public Policy from the University of Chicago with an intention to change health policy and advocate for patient access. And she is currently pursuing her MBA at Johns Hopkins University. Wow. Christina previously worked as a heart failure and pre-heart transplant nurse at Northwestern University of Chicago and Columbia. So obviously, she definitely knows what she's talking about. We are so pleased that she could join us today to speak on this important topic, women in heart health. Welcome, Christina.
Thank you so much, Wendy, for that introduction. I very much appreciate it. So I'll give some brief facts before we kind of dig in, and I'll take most questions actually from the audience because I'm sure you guys have lots of questions. But just wanted to give you some interesting facts about cardiovascular care specifically for women. Each year, it's actually the #1 killer of women across the board. Wow. Even if you think about things like cancer, if you think about things just in general for every single type of disease point, cardiovascular is actually, again, the #1 killer combined with if you were looking separate for all of the other disease points. So about 1 in 3 women actually pass away because of cardiovascular reasons. So about 33%, that's a really large chunk of folks. So, we really want to put the emphasis on prevention and understanding what's really important for cardiovascular health, what can we do to prevent any cardiovascular diseases, and if we do get diagnosed with anything cardiovascular, what do we do from there, and how do we prevent things for our kids and our grandkids? What do we need to do in order to make those healthy choices and be able to help protect the next generation of folks? So it's interesting and really important to understand in terms of cardiovascular health, it can really affect you at any point in life, not just what's most commonly, I think a lot of people think, okay, if you're older in age, you're going to get cardiovascular disease. It's a component because as we live longer lives, we do make choices as we eat, and those things do kind of affect things like our arteries. Oftentimes, everybody always hears about like the bad cholesterol, the good cholesterol types of things, but it's a culmination of all of our decisions of every day of our lives, right? But it can affect us when we're younger as well. So for instance, kids who are born with congenital heart diseases, those are folks that, they didn't do anything wrong. They were just born that way, unfortunately. And those are things that we have to kind of follow up and really identify early on in life and be able to really make the steps and changes to help them live a long life. As we also kind of learn, women who have children, we do have a large portion of folks that actually end up getting diagnosed because they are pregnant. They end up getting diagnosed with any sort of cardiovascular disease, really linked primarily with hypertension. So when we think about hypertension, we're really looking at high blood pressure. So it can lead to a couple of different things, like preeclampsia is kind of the big key thing that we're really looking for folks in that group. Now, that's something that we really always want to manage with, that individual as well as their cardiologist or their primary care doctor, typically preferring, of course, their cardiologist. Now, after you've had that baby, does that mean that all of your problems have disappeared? Unfortunately, for the plight of women, we do not get that joy. So it doesn't necessarily mean that everything goes away. Sometimes that means that you do have cardiovascular issues post that we really have to manage. And a lot of folks, sometimes do need to have that cardiologist cardiologist if they want to have that second child. So things for you guys to think about in terms of how your personal cardiovascular health is, but how your kids' cardiovascular healths are, because a lot of things are genetically related. So if you have some sort of cardiac issues, we always want to kind of watch out for the next generations. What can we kind of do to prevent anything to happen to them, of course. So, of course, I think also a lot of people have a common misconception that cardiovascular disease is very much linked with menopause. It is not. So you do have, of course, menopause at a later time in life, and that's when a lot of the cardiovascular diseases tend to occur because of how the veins and arteries of your heart kind of look. But it's not necessarily linked to menopause directly. So I always like to kind of dispel that piece. And then we always want to look through and kind of see, how, going back to the pregnancy aspect, how everything kind of fits in together. Actually, 50% of women who go into pregnancy don't even know that they have cardiovascular disease. And it's about really managing how we really prevent any serious complications for mom and for baby. About 10 to 20% of women who do have issues within pregnancy, again, are related more towards the high blood pressure and the preeclampsia. And, of course, gestational diabetes are some of the bigger risks. And if we're talking national averages, at least in the stateside, females are around 20 years or older, about 45% of them are actually already living with some sort of cardiovascular disease. And so it's quite a significant amount. But I'll say in terms of national understanding of cardiovascular disease, obviously, I think we all know, like when you're younger, you think, I'm invincible. I have no problems. There's no one's going to touch me. It's fine. Like everything's okay. But actually about 44% of women across the board in the US actually even recognize that they can have a cardiovascular disease point. So that's a really low number in understanding of your body and how your cardiac health really is important. So we definitely want to inch those numbers higher and have more of an understanding of how do you actually manage your cardiovascular health as time goes on. Other things we really want to make sure as well, as we're looking into those higher blood pressures and blood pressure management, is the risk for stroke. So we really, really, really want to make sure, of course, those numbers are on the lower end. What we prefer is anything under 120 and over 80. That tends to be our sweet spot in terms of cardiology. If you tend to need to be a little bit lower, that's something that, your cardiologist can kind of discuss with you. Sometimes they want you a little bit lower. But again, we're really trying to manage that risk for stroke. About 51.9% of deaths caused to this day is actually sort of more in the blood pressure related death space. So it's actually kind of interesting in terms of cardiovascular death. So we really want to make sure in terms of women that we're really acknowledging those types of things. There's about 4.1 million female stroke survivors living today. And about 57.7% of all stroke survivors are actually women. So we really want to make sure, again, going back to blood pressure, that's something we really manage. And just, if you want to refer to your handy card at any time frame, it's one of those things where we wanted to create this where somebody can always just stick this on the fridge with a lovely magnet. It tells you, of course, all of the basics, your blood pressure range, your body mass index, of course, how to be heart healthy is something that I really want to focus on. I know getting around isn't always the easiest type of thing, but if you can do 30 minutes of active walking, that's going to increase your bone health, which is always really crucial, but also really, really help you in terms of your cardiac health. Because if you think about it, at the end of the day, your heart is a muscle. If you don't really work on it, it's not going to work well, right? So we want to make sure you're getting that activity as much as possible, Of course, if you can do more than 30 minutes, I'm even happier. But I'll accept 30 minutes of activity if you can do at least walk outside for 30 minutes. That would be great. At least about 150 of moderate exercise a day, meaning if you want to take a brisk walk with a buddy, that'd be great. I know there's always several programs like Silver Sneakers that are great that, you can absolutely take a part of, and they walk in, various different places that's not always outside because I know the weather isn't always our best friends. And then it does have, of course, your healthy cholesterol and your bad cholesterol, as we label them. And of course, if those are on the higher ends, we always suggest for you to go ahead and see your cardiologist so that those things can get managed. Sometimes even for our super crazy healthy folks that are like constantly eating a ton of fish and like working out like crazy, tend to even have higher levels. Sometimes genetics is just not our friend. Right. And so those are things we really just want to still even manage in those folks, because we don't want you to have any sort of diseases in your arteries and have buildup of that plaque in those spaces. Of course, we always want to focus on comorbidities, meaning like diseases that tend to pair together more often than not. So you tend to see more folks with diabetes type 2 when you have somebody who has cardiology diseases, so heart failure and those types of things. They just tend to go a little bit more hand in hand in terms of when we see correlations. So we always want to make sure in terms of your hemoglobin A1C, which is a 3-month marker in terms of how your blood sugar looks over the 3-month time span, that it's below 5.6. That's kind of our good sweet spot. In terms of, let's say, the LDL, which is everyone calls the bad cholesterol, we tend to want to keep folks really in the 70 to 100 range. And again, when people take your cholesterol level, that's a marker of 3 months typically. So even if we start you on a medication today, we would want to take your blood in 3 months or so to see if that medication has taken effect, thereby lowering your LDL and kind of lowering that risk of any cardiovascular issues. And of course, we love our heart healthy diet, and there is a nice reminder of making sure you're eating a Mediterranean diet if possible and keeping as healthy as possible.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
And it was
Thank
quite
you.
a lot of information.
Any questions?
Christina, are there differences in how women will, if they are starting to have a heart episode, are there differences between women and men and how it would present itself?
Good question.
Yes,
Good
absolutely. So definitely, men and women do present a little bit differently. I think, when we think heart attack, people tend to think like, I'm having like the arm pain or I'm having the severe chest pain. I think, with women, we tend to ignore a lot of problems, not because we're, trying to forget something or push something to the side, but I think we kind of deal with more aches and pains than normal people or than males. I'm so sorry, males, but we kind of deal with a lot more things. And we're kind of like, oh, I have this indigestion, it's fine. I have indigestion, no big deal. Or, I don't feel quite right, or I'm a little bit more lightheaded and dizzy, or I don't feel quite right. And, I would say acknowledge those symptoms and acknowledge, how you feel is important, and definitely making sure that you really recognize, how your body changes, and be able to give your cardiologist a call or your primary care doctor if you don't have a cardiologist a call, just to go through some of those symptoms with them.
Very good. Any other questions?
If you have heart disease in your family, at what point do you, and is there a test to see if your arteries are clogged?
So there are, I would say it depends on a couple of different factors depending on your cardiologist. So some cardiologists, depending on what your family history is, if you have a really long family history of, let's say, a lot of coronary artery disease or a lot of heart attacks, what people call those are things that we really want to take into account on top of what your blood tests look like, what we call an echocardiogram. It's an ultrasound of the heart. kind of looks like if you're able to do things like a stress test on a treadmill, if you're not able to do like the physical activity on a treadmill, because let's be honest, even I have like joint issues. Like, you know, it's one of those things where we have alternative testing that is able to go ahead and kind of give you a good marker of, well, do we need to do something else? Do we need to genetically test you to see if there's something that we can do for your, you know, preventionary points? So I think those are really important, just to make sure you have regular checks, especially being able to let your physician know, hey, here's my family history, or here's what I know of my family history. You know, is there something I need to do, or are there things that I need to kind of be more proactive about? I think that's the family history part is always really important, because it's one of those things where, you know, we only know a portion of how our genes are going to really express at the end of the day. And being able to have that, like, okay, well, my grandmother had a lot of coronary artery disease and my mom's blood pressure is high. Okay, so like this is, you know, more likely that this is going to be my future. So like, how do I do those steps now, like to prevent that from happening? And so those are kind of good markers to learn. I think, you know, as more and more, you know, education is coming out about women in particular, because of women's participation, I'll say, actually just in general, women actually participate significantly less than men in terms of clinical trials, and clinical trials are the places that we learn the most to be able to really understand what works and what doesn't work. You know, we all have different body chemistry and we all have different reactions. So I think seeing that women actually participate at 40% rather than men participate at 60%. We want women to participate more so that we're able to actually be able to give medications that work for both men and women and be able to have that balance between patients. So I hope that answers your question, but I'm also happy to connect anybody with a cardiologist if they need to as well, that they can kind of do more of a family history for folks and be able to kind of do what we call in genomics, like there's a way where we map out each person in your whole family and kind of like see where folks like split off between, like, if things fall more towards your maternal side or your paternal side, and we kind of break things out a little bit more to be helpful and kind of see where the future might lead.
Very good. Thank you so much. We really appreciate you coming. Thank you very much. Okay, next we have an old friend. Sorry, we left one of the A's off of your name. Aaron Bach, a past supervisor and current planning board member. Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Good to see everybody. A couple of weeks ago, Rosemary asked me if I wouldn't mind speaking on housing opportunities in Yorktown, and I'm very happy to do so, especially because of the person who asked me to do this.
Thank you.
Rosemary and I go back many years together in various works on behalf of the town. We served together in the Chamber of Commerce. We used to host candidate debates together. And although we're of different parties, she and I have come to know that we have very similar views about town government. And those differences never interfered with our respect for one another or for our friendship. We share common goals for local government of integrity, common sense, fiscal responsibility, and good planning. And that's some of the things I'm going to talk about today. My roots in Yorktown go back to the late 50s. When I was a kid, my parents dragged us up here for summer camp, and I was here for 4 summers over on 132, which looked a lot different then than it does now. I'd been a full-time resident of Yorktown since 1973. I have one son who lives over in Cross River and 2 granddaughters, and we're all in the same area. Professionally, I've been an attorney in Yorktown since 1984. I've had a business here. It still exists, even though I'm just about retired. And as Rosemary said, I am a former town supervisor. A poor picture of me is in the back there. And I am now in my 6th year on the Yorktown Planning Board. So before I go into some of the things that are going on in housing in Yorktown, I just wanted to hear a little bit about your experiences with housing in Yorktown. How many of you live in a single-family detached house still?
Oh, shame.
How many are you happy with that or looking maybe to make other arrangements as you get a little older? You're happy with the single-family housing? And how many of you live in something other than single-family houses? Are you up in the village? Most of you? I know, Rosemary, you moved recently.
Jefferson Village.
Yeah, Jefferson Village. And I'm sure there were reasons that led you to change and move, but you also said, I want to stay in Yorktown. I want to stay in the town that I have my connections with, my religious affiliation, my friends. I've only lived in two places so far in Yorktown. One was my parents' house and one was my house, where I've been over 40 years. In between, I spent a little time in an apartment trying to get some money together, also in Yorktown, up on East Main Street, up by DeChico's. There's a little apartment complex up there, Cochin 4, so I was there for a little while. And when I think about where I'm going to go in the future, I think about college towns where you can get out of your house and walk around, and then I say, but I don't want to go there because I won't know anybody. How can we bring this type of thing to Yorktown, where you can have communities that are accessible and walkable and close by and convenient? So to answer that question, we need to step back a little bit and look over the past 75 years in town and figure out where we were, how we got to where we are today, and then where we're going. There were many visions for Yorktown over the years. Yorktown was a farming community. Maybe some of you know the story or even saw the cows walking across 202 years back. But the planners back then envisioned Yorktown as a bedroom community for New York City. And back in the 1950s, they envisioned a population of Yorktown of excess of 50,000 people. And they planned it out. Many of the communities up in the north were planned for quarter-acre zones. In fact, you may know that your zone has two pieces. It has an R and then a number 1, which is a single family, and then another number, which is the number of acres in the parcel. So my house is zoned R110, which means 10,000 square feet or a quarter of an acre. The town, years later, decided to abandon that concept and bring the population down. So the communities around the heights, around the lakes, in the northern part of town where I am, those were all changed so that the ultimate population of the town is roughly where we are now. We're about 36 and change, 36,000 people. However, the town is not static. Things change. But the nice thing about Yorktown is these things change together with the community. Many of you might be familiar with the concept of a master or a comprehensive plan, which is a document that the town adopts every 10, 15, 20 years to plot out what's going to happen in the future. And to me, as a former elected official and a citizen, this is a very unique process for a town. Matt Slater comes to us and talks about Albany, but not many of us get to go up to Albany and talk to him while he's sitting as an assembly person. But you can do that here in Yorktown. Yorktown has always involved citizens in developing its future, in figuring out what the master plan is going to be. The master plan looks ahead. It's not reactionary. I remember working in 1988 on the master plan with Supervisor Nancy Elliott at the time, and I was one of many citizens from the community that participated in discussions to formulate that plan. And each of the plans that came afterward, I believe most recently was 2010, had the same level of community involvement in order for us to forge our own future. The master plan or the comprehensive plan, it sets the goals. It sets what happens where. why you don't find gas stations in the middle of residential neighborhoods generally, but you have areas set aside for that. You have areas set aside for our housing. You have areas set aside for more manufacturing, industrial, retail uses. And most importantly, you set the density of the town. So many years ago, when I was supervisor, the town planner said to me, you know, 90% of the town is pretty well set up. It's arranged already. You're going to have your housing in certain areas. You're going to have your businesses in others. But in some respects, it's not static. The current conditions in Yorktown may be different. According to the last census, we have about 13,100 households in the town of Yorktown. About 82% are owner-occupied, which include your homes and your condos and your co-ops. We have about 3.5% vacant rate altogether in the town. The value of the median value of the house, the median value last year, 2 years ago, was $531,000. And the sales price in 2024 was about $625,000. These are for houses.
Forget that now.
We have about 2,000 rentals households in the town of Yorktown, which includes multifamily, straight rentals, apartments, and things of that sort. But they're not always available. So when thinking about where we're going in the future, we have to think about our expectations. We want to age in place. All of us want to stay where we are if we can help it. We want to be independent. As I said before, we want to walk. Oh, and by the way, the largest population group in town, 1/3 of us are over 55.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the demographic from the last census. So these goals are reflected in some of the latest zoning concepts that are adopted by the town board and implemented by the planning board. The town board makes these policies. So if 90% of the town is set up, what do you do to meet new needs? You take existing areas and you change those uses that are allowed, which is what the town board did a few years ago with the overlay districts
Right.
here in town and up where I am, up in Jefferson Valley. Those are important policy decisions, I think. They are controversial with many because many people don't want to see changes and they don't recognize the need for a community to change and grow and adapt. From my perspective in town government and as on the planning board, we're not looking ahead a year or two or three. We're looking ahead many years. Assemblyman Slater was talking about the lead time for projects earlier. And I remember when the Taconic was 4 lanes, and that plan was 10 years in the making before the shovel hit the ground. I remember when Route 6 didn't exist, and we only had the Route 6 through Shrub Oak, right? Those plans took years to develop, but they were made by forward-thinking people who were not planning for today, but they were planning for the needs of the future. And the housing opportunities that I'm going to describe in a moment are also looking forward and ahead to the needs of our community going forward. I was quite surprised when I added up the number of housing opportunities that are coming in if all these new projects get built. It's over 800 housing opportunities. And I just want to point out something. I'm going to run through the list, but our town clerk, Diana Quast, has a wonderful website, and part of her website is a complete list of ongoing projects in town. And I would recommend that if you want more information about any of these projects, to go on the website that she maintains and take a look at that information that's on there. And it'll give you a lot. So if we start at the southern end of town, we have the Toll Brothers on Catherine Street, which is right next to the field home. That project is currently in need of a rezoning, and it's before the town board, but we have seen it on the planning board. They're looking there for 118 new units of housing, targeting 55 and older active adults. We have a small project on Garden Lane, which has 20 units there. We have the most controversial one of late, which is right across the street over here, the Underhill Farm project. And in case you don't know, that one is offering 148 residential units. To me, the beauty of that plan is that it not only has housing units, but it has related businesses right on the same site, plus outdoor recreational space. So it's really creating a little villagey type center across the street there. 80 condos, which would have 48 townhouses, 32 condos, and 68 rental apartments. We need a lot of that. We need rental apartments. Our businesses need people to manage and serve them, to run them, to serve our community. So Underhill Farms is an important contribution in my mind to new housing in Yorktown. We have a small project going on where the former town clerk Wyant used to be, right behind the Roma building. That one's almost up. I believe it's around 20 units there. I don't remember the exact number. We have the potential for mixed-use development here in Kmart, at the old Kmart Center, but I think that's going to go away for a while because we've got some new tenants coming in to that space. So even though we saw very ambitious plans for housing there, I don't think that's going to happen right away. But the tools for that to happen have been put in place. Yeah, question?
On the Underhill, where there are 148 units?
Yeah.
Are any of those for over 55?
They were presented to us as senior-friendly units, okay? We did not get a direct answer from the developer as to whether they would be limited or not. So that remains to be seen. I don't know the answer to that. And another question?
The ones behind the Roma building, who were they geared for?
They're not geared for anyone in particular.
Because I thought there was some talk a while ago about housing for our children who want to remain in Yorktown.
Yeah.
And those townhouses, I think they are, behind the Roma building, are $750,000 and $900,000.
Right.
My kids can't afford that.
Right. I understand. I think that there'll be more flexible opportunities across the street here at Underhill Farm for that rental apartments and things like that. But I recall that there were no restrictions on the project you just mentioned. Part of the problem is in government we are limited to receiving proposals and to take things that the developers come forward with, and we can't necessarily mandate that they do certain things like you're suggesting, although it would be nice. There are two other big projects in town which, if they come to fruition, will bring in another 500 housing units, and they're both at opposite ends of East Main Street in Jefferson Valley. On the west side, where Contractors Registry is, right next to the Taconic, is a 250-unit project. That is geared towards active adults. That, too, requires a rezoning from the town board. I don't think they did it yet, but that's a plan that we have seen. And on the eastern side, going up Route 6N off Navajo Street, where there's a sports fields now, there's another project there that's currently before the town board. About 250 more units are going in there. I don't have anything more specific on that. It's a fairly new proposal. In fact, the applicant there, they're looking to extend the overlay district in Jefferson Valley to cover that property. So we've got over 800 units that may be coming in over the next couple of years as these projects come to fruition. Yeah?
Are these 500 units, are they condos, single-family homes?
These are not single-family homes. Neither one of the two in Jefferson Valley. They're attached, well, there's a combination. They'll be putting up different buildings, but they're not single-family homes. There are a handful of single-family home subdivisions that constantly come through and that we're working on, but in terms of these numbers, they're not significant. We're, maybe a 10-unit one here or 7-unit one there. As I said before, zoning and planning is not static. It changes to meet the needs of the community, And I want to just remind you again that we take a long look on these things. Now, a friend of mine, I just want to conclude, a friend of mine, Bill LaScala, who serves with me on the planning board, you may know him, is fond of reminding me that he remembers when Dave Bogdanoff was doing Jefferson Village, and everybody in Yorktown said, no, 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 we don't want it.
That's right.
And now,
Boy, do you want
we're all
us.
there.
And you want us.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? Yeah.
As far as these 800 units, how is it going to affect schools and services and the taxes and the roads?
Let me just, it's not 800 units all at once. It's a series of maybe a half a dozen places where those are going to go in. Part of the responsibility of the planning board in assessing the impacts of these projects is to determine what impacts it's going to have on our road system and to try to get the person who's building it to offset those impacts and not make them worse. And a prime example of that is right over here at this intersection with Town Hall and with Commerce Street and 118. The developer there is funding improvements to the intersection to improve the flow of traffic. So what we're looking for when we do these things are positive impacts and not adverse impacts, okay? So each project is assessed for the impacts that it's going to have, and if the impacts are too great, then the project gets changed. And we've done that on occasion. We've said, look, this is too big. You've got to bring it down. Their proposal across the street was much larger at one point, and we said it wouldn't work. So we're looking to create a balance between the benefit of the project and the impacts. As far as schools, we have 4 school districts in Yorktown, so each of them are impacted a little differently. We also look to assess the positive tax impacts on this versus the impact on our town infrastructure and expenses, things of that sort. So we do look at it each one. Our planning board meets every 2 weeks. It's on the second, fourth Monday nights usually. Those are televised meetings, thanks to Tom Ciangela in the back. You're welcome to come and watch us work. Everything we do is out in the open and before the public. Yes?
Are they doing anything with the Roma building, and how will that development impact because there's a lot of congestion there. How are they going to get in and out of that development?
The last time the planning board saw plans for the Roma building was about 2.5 years ago. There's nothing active pending before us right now. So I don't know what's going to happen to that building. Okay? As far as I know, they're not asking for anything right now. Anybody else? Yeah.
One more question about the Soundview. We can't get some kind of answer of how much those condos, apartments, or townhouses will go. I know 4. And I know, Mr. Bach, you can't tell us exactly. But can you give us a little rough? Because if I'm going to wait for Soundview to be built so I can move in it.
You want to know, right?
Yes. I want to know more or less. What are we talking about?
I don't know. I can't tell you except that they've said us the majority of those units are going to be market rate. Now, he's got townhouses going up one side and an apartment building in the middle, but I don't know what they're going to be.
The market rate, when they say that to me, it's like,
I know.
But you're selling your house.
yeah.
700,000.
And those houses, those condos, mark my words, are going to be more money than when I sell my house.
But I think everyone,
By the time we get there in 3 or 2 or 3 years, we won't be able to afford it.
I understand.
but
I
people
understand.
have to
I wish I could help you, but I
understand,
can't.
people have to understand what's happened to the environment and what's happened to the economy. When they started 3 or 4 years ago, materials and everything were down here. Now they're way up here.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
So, when we say market value,
At the
the
time.
gentleman or who's building this place has to get their money out of it also.
The
Because
houses that we sell are never going to get to that point.
no, because
falling apart. That's what I'm saying.
But I mean, you can't blame the builder for that, you know. So it's very difficult. I think I'm from a construction family, and it's very difficult right now to even put it, because every week you go. I only know from experience. Every week you go to, and they don't use Lowe's or Home Depot or whatever. Every week you go, the price goes up. Unless he purchased all of his material 4 years ago.
But what I'm trying to bring out is
Yeah,
that
you're right.
it's the biggest possibility in my life that I want to move to something
Right.
smaller instead of going up and down the stairs. In 3 years,
Mm-hmm.
my house is not going to go up because, as you know, the increments of our houses that we own now are not going up to match what the housing are going.
Yeah.
Right now, at 2024, what's going to happen in 2026?
I wish I had better.
I think
Had
it's
better answer. One more, yeah.
I don't live in Yorktown, I apologize, I did at one point.
You can still come back.
I would love to, if I could have afforded a senior place to live. But if, is there a set aside for a number of affordable houses that go into each development? Because I know some towns do that, I don't know if there is.
I
one there.
believe we used to have that. I don't think it exists
Not anymore.
anymore.
I was just curious if that existed.
I just want to make one comment, Mr. Bach.
That's a whole different question. The question is, do we still have such a program? And I believe not.
That's HUD, no.
Okay.
I don't know what is it.
Sure.
What happened to the proposed hotel?
Which one?
Proposed hotel
The boutique?
I'm not sure. I think that what I heard on that is that the finances caught up to the developer and they backed down. from
right.
it. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Aaron. Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you.
I'd just like to say that Aaron not only is on our planning board, excuse me, he is not only on our planning, but your wife, I believe, is on the conservation board, right? So they are really dedicated to the town, this family. Thank you. Thank you. Diana, do you have anything you want to say?
I do. I have a couple of things just to touch base on.
No.
Almost. The Westchester County Clerk's mobile passport office will be at Town Hall, Yorktown Town Hall, on Tuesday, May 21st, from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. The mobile office accepts passport applications and will take passport photos. So if you need to renew or apply for a new passport, they'll be up here at Yorktown Town Hall on May 21st.
May 21st?
May 21st between 10 and 1.
Do you have to be from Yorktown in order to take advantage of that
No.
service? Okay, thank you.
And also, the town of Yorktown, the town board passed a resolution on Tuesday night to hold a special election on July 23rd to fill the town council seat vacated by Supervisor Ed Lachterman. More information will be available on the town's website as soon as it is made available to us by the Westchester County Board of Elections. Right now, they're on a time frame, so they've been noticed with the resolution, and now they have to prepare an election calendar, in which they have 10 days to do. So as soon as that's prepared by them, we will post it on our website and get that information out.
Will it be announced also on, I don't know, News 12 or what have you?
Well, we'll do our best that we can to get it out in the paper, onto our website. We'll probably do a TV show on it, and we'll try to get it out there as much as possible.
Okay.
The candidates now, it goes to the committees, whether it's Republican, Democrat, Working Families, Conservative, whatever. Everybody is allowed to put up a candidate from that. So when those organizations meet and pick someone, then you'll know who the candidates are.
Okay. Very good. Anybody else? Do you have anything to say, Jim? I know you do.
Do you have a question? Or?
Yeah. This is, I don't know who asked this question. You're building all these buildings. I live in Cherry Road, right off Hyatt Street. I've been waiting for 50 years for sewers. Where is all this crap? That's literally.
I
from
cannot
these
answer.
buildings. Where is it going?
I can't answer that question. I do the administrative work.
Who
but
should I
that's
ask
a question
that
for the
question
town
to?
board, okay?
Town board?
Town board.
Okay.
Okay, anybody else have anything?
I think Jim wants to come.
Jim, come on.
I said, I pay a sewer tax, but I'm not able to connect to a sewer.
Congratulations.
We all do. We all do. We all have to pay that.
You won't have to pay that if you're in the district.
District, right.
Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, I
Excuse
think
me.
the question had asked where you could ask questions. There's public comment at the planning board meetings, right, Aaron?
Yeah.
No, there's no public comment of any kind?
There's a lot of public comment, but it's specific time,
Spec-
not every day,
Okay.
not every meeting.
It's not every meeting, so you'd have to look into that. So there are some opportunities at the planning board meetings. So yeah, we have a lot of things going on this summer in Parks and Recreation. We have a lot of fun trips for the seniors going on, and we have registration forms in the back. And if you're looking to sign up, you can fill out a registration form at our office at 176 Granite Springs Road. On June 20th, we're going to be going on a cruise on the Hudson. On June 27th, we're going to be doing a lake cruise at Cooperstown. That's going to be an overnight. On June 9th, we're going to be going to the AquaTurf. It's kind of going to be some Frank Sinatra singers and a nice luncheon. On June 25th, we're going to be going to Foxwoods and playing high stakes bingo. And on August 6th, we're going to the CIA, Culinary Institute of America. So a lot of fun trips. Registration forms are on the back. On June 8th, we have a very important event. We'll be honoring Tom Diana at 9 a.m. Over at Granite Knolls, and then following that, we'll be going down to the John C. Hart Library, where a part of East Main Street is going to be named after Tom. So June 8th, please mark that on your calendars and come honor him. We have opened up the pool registration at Parks and Rec. Seniors over the age of 70 get a free pool pass. If you can't make it all the way to Parks and Recreation, but you had a pass last year, you can call in and we'll sign you up over the phone. If you've never had a pass before, please bring your license and a proof of residency, and we'll give you a new card if you've never signed up before. Seniors from 65 to 69 will be charged $21 for their pass, and seniors from 60 to 64 will be charged $37 for their pass. You'll have to come in for those passes if you're those ages. On June 21st, we'll be doing our movie Under the Stars at Jack DeVito Veterans Field, and we'll be showing Barbie. So that's at sunset.
Oh, wow.
So bring your grandkids. It's gonna be fun, and everyone's gonna really enjoy it. Do you guys have any questions for me while I'm here?
None.
Yeah. Are we having a summer yoga class? We probably we have one that's you already have enrollment for right now. We have the senior dance and exercise. That enrollment's going to start now, and it's going to start on June 28th. So yeah, if you want to call the office, we can give you an update on where we are with chair yoga. We had to actually add a couple classes because we're completely filled up in those classes. Yeah. We try and be. Yeah, we want to keep you active.
That's right.
Very good.
Any other questions? Good.
Any other questions? Okay.
All right. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very
Thank
much,
you.
Jim. Thank you. Yeah.
They may want to go. The salute to seniors, they may want to go.
Who's the salute to seniors?
Can I just say it?
Yeah.
Sorry. Westchester County is having a salute to seniors on May 30th from 9:30 to 1:30. It's free. It's at the Westchester County Center. It's free parking. The date to reserve a lunch has come and gone, but there are a lot of places around there to eat. So they're having the Jersey Tenors there. There are workshops. There's a lot of information like expo type stuff there. So it may be something that if people want to carpool together and go, it's a nice free thing to think about. And at our office, the June 20th Veterans Lunch is for veterans. It's not like, it's just a veterans lunch for this time. The senior fairs will be for everybody. Okay. And then Hudson Valley Caregiver Support Groups, we put some flyers out for Alzheimer's. If you know anybody or you're struggling with that, they're in the back.
Okay.
That's all. But the salute to seniors might be fun.
And there's some, as I said, some pamphlets here. If you want to pick them up, you're welcome to. Okay. See you next
Is there
month.
one there for the veterans?
No.
They do stuff.
Next month is our last meeting before the summer, then we come back in September.
I'm giving you his
Thank you.
email.